Hello, welcome to April 30th, 2023. My name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation video. An exercise that I do every morning, a little bit after waking up. It's now exactly 4:59 a.m., almost at 5. I'm running a little bit late. I do this in order to remember my life objectives and principles, which are outlined in my book, Going Alone. I also use this time to think about the last day and how I did applying the aforementioned objectives and principles to the challenges and opportunities that I met. I then finish by planning the coming day. Let's begin. First, last night and yesterday. Slept well again last night. I was up before the alarm, but it was that same pleasant, kind of an airy twilight sleep. It was the same feeling that, how when you go to bed and there's like a little bit of time before you fall asleep and you're just so glad to be there. It just feels so good and your consciousness slowly fades away. That's the same feeling. And it's not really in reverse. It's not like I'm rising from that. It's like that same emerging into that twilight, feeling. It's a very good feeling. I don't mind if that lingers. If that's what insomnia will look like going forward, then bring it on in moderation, of course. So there was that. That was good. Yesterday was a standard day. I did a lot of things yesterday. It was a Saturday. I had like 14 things on my to-do list, and I knocked them all off except one, which is something that I couldn't do because it was visit the dentist, and I couldn't do that on a Saturday. Really, that item was a reminder to make an appointment to see the dentist, just for a routine checkup. So I'll do that on Monday. I'll make the appointment at least. The rest was all in good shape. Oh, I need to add another one. I need to add one to, I want to attend a retirement seminar at work to make sure I've got, there's certain things about timing so that you can, the benefits continue to accrue of some sort. Anyway, they have retirement seminars for those that are interested. I need to look into that and sign up for that. And then that was yesterday. So let's begin. Oh, wait, were there any challenges or opportunities, any particular ones? Not that I can say in particular, although I was ready all day. I had my Stoic principles at the ready all day. Just no need came up. Nothing really happened that required me to use them. My apathy was here. My fortitude was over here. My ability to sense and test and sense where the limits of my reach are all. And like Stilbo the Stoic, I had my goods with me. That's for you, Parker, if you see this. Let's do the good life. My 7 objectives are as follows. Number 1, and all of these are listed and described in my book, Going Alone, in the chapter titled The Good Life. My first objective is to be always ready to die. That means that I have to have my life affairs and my relationships and my life's work in order. And they are. My second objective is to make good and effective use of my time. To not let my days just drift by or, tick away without making good use of that time. And that's one of the reasons why I keep a list and I have a routine. Like I've already started the morning with a beautiful poem called Emma by John Keats that I read. I sat here first thing, as soon as I got the lights on and sat down, I picked it up and read that poem. Really, that poem alone was worth the day. Number 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. That is the tinkering that I do with the Good Life Creed, as I'm doing right now. 4, to cultivate good emotional reactions, to become and remain someone who responds well to the world around me. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm perfect in that capacity. I still have my moments. I lose my cool, but they're less and less. And they're nothing like they were 20 years ago. Strike one for maturity, right? It's like I keep saying, I would love to have the body of my 30-year-old body back, but I would not want my 30-year-old mind back for nothing. No, thank you. So there were some elements that were pretty interesting, but nah, no thanks. 5 is to perform good actions, just to do good things throughout the day. 6 is to recognize my true limits and my true opportunity, to apprehend the scope of my reach, to not be worried about things that are beyond my grasp. Not worried about what's happening on Alpha Centauri 4 light years away. Or what's happening in the Alpha Centauri of events all around me throughout my day, even in this room. I think you get the picture. There's some potential depth of thought there. Maybe something to dwell on later. Number 7, my 7th objective, is to do just one thing at a time, and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully. To never ever multitask, unless I'm maybe grabbing for my bear spray as I'm running away from a charging bear. Well, I shouldn't run from a charging bear, but you get the idea, right? There's some necessity in multitasking. If the multitasking is a necessity, then sure, that's fine. You know, like I could be in a meeting, in a Zoom meeting, and we need to have somebody. I'm the project manager, and we need to have somebody in the meeting. It's all right to be scrambling to get that person in the meeting while I'm in the meeting. You get the point. I don't even need to elaborate on this, but for the most part, I try to avoid that. That's why in my meetings, if you're in my meetings, my camera's always on, and I'm just sitting there. If I'm not engaged in talking, my hands folded, listening attentively to what everybody is saying, not fidgeting, not distracted, unless they absolutely have to be. It's good practice for overall attentiveness. Okay, those were my 7 objectives. Now, for my 34 principles, as follows. Number 1 is the principle of war. To always be fighting against anything that I already believe is true, my settled worldview, and to also be fighting against anything that is proposed to me as true that someone suggests I should adopt, or convention suggests that I should adopt. I need to fight against all these things, especially the stuff I already believe, because it's already made. It's the Trojan horse stuff that's inside, and maybe the Trojan horse is empty, but I need to keep investigating. My second principle complements the first one, where if the first principle is war, the second principle, reason, is the instrument and tool that I use in the pursuit of that war. Reason has 3 sub-principles: honesty, objectivity, doubt. Or did I say 3? Did I say 3? I meant 4. And humiliation. Honesty, because I want to be honest with myself and others, especially as regards truth. Objective, which calls to mind a skeptical way of thinking and a skeptical worldview. Doubt. So, I got myself mixed up. Honesty, I said that one. Objectivity, that's the one I missed, I think. Looking at things squarely and completely and truthfully as best I can. Skeptically, and the last one, humiliation, is where I want to welcome the chance to discover that I'm wrong. Even if it's a humiliating discovery, even if it's a discovery done in public amongst others, bring it on. My third principle, is the homunculus. The reminder that I don't have a soul, but I do have a consciousness, at least for a while yet. 4 is the anchor hold, which is the home of the homunculus, the home of my consciousness, which exists right up here. It feels like, doesn't it feel like it's like right behind my wrinkly forehead? Kind of peeking out through my eyes. And I use this principle to remind myself that my consciousness is trapped. There's no apparent characteristics of it, like a soul that would escape my dying body and flee away, my dead body, and flee away to some paradise or hell. Everything that I ever am or ever will be is contained in this mortal coil. Next is purpose. My life has 3 purpose. Number 1 is to be a good husband and father. Number 2 is to be a virtuous human being, where virtue is defined as nothing more than seeking after the pursuit of the well-being of thinking creatures. It's a mouthful just to say that I'm trying to reduce suffering and increase happiness, not at the expense of others. Or at least not at the undue expense of others. There's a little bit of a nuance there, isn't there? 3, my third sub-principle, is my own purpose in life, which is to continue sharing the story of going alone. Next is the atomic principle, a reminder that everything is made of atoms and molecules and compounds that will fall to pieces not just when I die, but including me and you and all of us, is just this churning of the natural stuff of which the universe is formed. None of us is what we are for very long. Next comes the principle of nature, an interesting reminder and a very useful principle insofar as I remind myself to look at things and try to discover the nature of things and people so that I can deal with them, dare I say, use them to best advantage, to best virtuous advantage, according to their nature. The people that I work with, I don't ask or expect anything more of them than their nature. Then why do I get upset at that one person? Good question to myself. That is that person's nature. I need to remember that, put a pin in that. Kurt, knock that off. That is their nature. I'll remember that. See, it's helpful. Next comes the pirate ride. It's just a simple, humble suggestion that free will isn't a thing. We're not free. We abide the universe machination, the universal machinations going on all around us. We're jostled and pushed and tugged by the tides, the pulls, the inertia of everything that's happening. Not much will involved. I can't prove that. I hold this principle on faith. Forgive me, I do sin. Because faith is a sin in my worldview. Next comes maturity, the principle of maturity, which has 3 sub-principles: wisdom, fortitude, and integrity. Maturity is that state we reach when we wisely remember our past successes and failures and then have the fortitude to do better. And then we can enjoy the integrity of a world, of a life lived in alignment with our values. It's a good thing. Next is the social principle. We human beings are social animals. We need each other, and it's good to seek after connections and to work on our skills of diplomacy, to work with one another, to then seek after justice, and then to conspire together towards it. So I should probably change the order of that. The sub-principles for social principle now are diplomacy, justice, and conspiracy. I should change it to be diplomacy, conspiracy, and justice, because we seek after diplomacy so that we can act in conspiracy towards the ends of justice. I need to make that switch. Maybe I'll do that tonight. Next, the next principle is the principle of family, this builds upon the social principle and is a further reminder that it's good to create family in our life, either by putting a ring on it and then building a family that way, or establishing family by virtue of our commitments and friendships. Whatever the case may be, we need our people. Then comes, what is next? I can always look at the book. The book's got all these principles and objectives laid out. Oh, and I forgot, there's a sub-principle for family. I kind of remembered there was, but I couldn't remember. Catalyst. Why catalyst? I can't remember. Let's see. Did I write it down? Oh yeah, here it is. Without this connection and circumstance, we can still live the connection of family. We can still live a rich and meaningful life, though the way may be harder at times as we strive with less mandate, catalyst perhaps, to compel us through the thick and thin. There you go. Family is a catalyst to do well. I don't think I would have ever, created the good life if I hadn't been for my family as my catalyst to stand up and step forward. Ah, yeah, the next one is public speaking. I almost forgot. Public speaking, the principle that suggests it's good to develop our communication abilities and our study and our listening capabilities as well. The sub-principles here are best words, to develop a deep and rich vocabulary and then use it prudently. I'm mixed up. There's like 5 sub-principles here. There's best words, eloquence, literature, and then 2 negatives, rumor and gossip. That's 5, and I thought there was another one. I'll leave it at that. Best words are having a good vocabulary. Literature is a recommendation to read good literature. I always keep good literature at my side, and I read every day so that I'm building the library and encyclopedia in my mind of great writing, which then translates into good speaking. Oh, wasn't there more? Hold on. Did I forget about... I forgot about 2 important ones. Prudence, which is the ability to filter our communication through our values. Key, that's key. It's kind of nonsense to be able to communicate well without prudence. Unless you're just, even if you're marketing, it's still the same. You got to have prudence. And then the second one is felicity, the ability to flavor and tint our communication with our emotions in due measure. Good, I'm glad I remembered those 2. So the sub-principles for public speaking are best words, prudence, felicity, literature, eloquence. I almost forgot eloquence too, which comes of modeling and practice. Rumor and gossip, the negative ones. So 7, a lot of stuff there. All right, the next principle is temperance, our ability to measure and control our consumption of life. The sub-principles here are suffering, because we suffer when we tell ourselves no. Simplicity, because a simple life is a temperate life. And apathy, the stoic skill of being able to disentangle ourselves from the things that are outside of our control and let them be. The next principle is life will not go well, and it won't. Bad things are happening, and they will happen to us and to others. And they're happening all around. The next principle is the horror show. sometimes the bad stuff is at a whole other level, the level of horror. Horror is real. The next principle is that which must be borne, carried. We have to carry in life the fact that life won't go well, and the fact of the horror that we experience and we see. Next comes the feast of offal, which is the waste and byproduct of our intemperate living, our excess emotions thrown off and in the face of those we love and care about, and even in the face of strangers. We need to not do that. Or consume it when others do it around us. Next comes the best seat in the house. To strive to be all right with who I am and where I am and what I'm doing, all the while seeking to improve. Next comes distraction. We spend our lives distracting ourselves with our work and our play and our hobbies, our religion, our thoughts of God, our politics, all the stuff that we spend our lives frittering away. What are we distracting ourselves from? That's the next principle. It's called the great indifference. It's the deep and abiding nothing and empty and meaninglessness of the universe at large, which is the thing we don't want to see and the reason that we stay distracted. It is the vision and the sight of going alone. Not a vision like a mystical vision, but a literal vision that comes of going alone into a deep desert, a moonscape, and witnessing the emptiness for yourself. Next comes the restless man, the experience of a man or a woman, typically in late teens, early 20s, that wants some adventure in life. The path of wildness is the step that we take towards such an adventure. And the great life adventure is the label that I put for what results of our having embarked upon the path of wildness and heeded the call to address the restlessness we feel inside. Next comes the risk of avoiding risk, which is a curious principle. It's like kind of like a continuum of risk avoidance, whereas we have on the one side the complete avoidance of risk, taking the sane and sober, settled life of education, career, home, family, security, and then death. And then on the other side, the more risky approach of stepping upon the path of wildness, risking it all, wasting it all, maybe, seemingly, for some adventure, which can be an extreme one if we don't do anything but that as well. There are people who are like that, whereas there's kind of like a middle ground too, where you can kind of have the security and the stability and the adventure. I've kind of swung mostly towards the adventure side. Just in the last decade, I kind of pulled the needle back and managed to get myself into the security side enough that I'll be able to retire peacefully soon. If I hadn't done that, then I would have probably gone too far the one way. The next principle is sin and damnation. The sins in my worldview, since I don't believe in God, I don't believe there's any God to sin against, but there are sins against good living, and these consist of being untruthful. That would be falsity, believing things too easily, credulity, believing things where the foundation for the belief is the belief itself. That's faith, which is nonsense. Superstition, more nonsense. Dogma, belief founded upon a tradition or an institution or a book. Authority, faith, a belief founded upon the charisma or the character of someone or some office of institution. And then beyond that, there's spreading rumors and engaging in gossip. That's 8. The consequence of any of these 8 sins is damnation, but not in any afterlife, because I don't think there's any soul for us to live beyond our lives. There's just damnation in the here and now. We get to live a damned life now. That's why it's sin and damnation. The next principle is called complete oblivion. After life is done, that's the end. Since there's no soul and no God and no world to come, when we're dead, there'll be no final reunion with the loved ones we love, no chance to reconcile any differences, and no chance for final justice. The only opportunity we get for any of that is in the time that we're alive. So I'm not going to waste my time. I'll work out on those things. Next comes the principle called the season of philosophy, which is a time in life to record the ideas that we have. Hold on. Pardon me. Keep a pen and paper handy to write them down. Once they come and they flit away, they'll never come back. Or they won't come back like they did before. Good ideas are not like hummingbirds. They don't return to the same place twice. Next comes the script writing, a principle called script writing, which is the tool, the skill that I use to write out in my mind the minutes, hours, and days to come, so that I've got them planned out and mapped out. And it tends to, it's kind of like maybe like they like to say, fulfillment or manifesting, right? I guess it's a form of manifesting in a way, but it really does work. I do it all the time at work. I go into a meeting and I think about before the meeting starts. I'll get the thing all up on the screen, just about to click the join button. 1 minute before the meeting starts or 2 minutes before the meeting starts, and I think in my mind, okay, who's going to be in this meeting? What are the things on the agenda? I'm the project manager, so usually the agenda's up to me. What challenges might be encountered? What personalities might, do their thing? The principle of nature, right? I script write, keeping in mind the principle of nature, true limits and true opportunity. And then I plan in my mind how I'm going to do the meeting. It's a raging success. It really does work. Because it really allows me to see and anticipate where the strengths and weaknesses are. The next principle is called the bullseye aim, which I deliberately put it after script writing, because the bullseye aim speaks to an expectation that I may strive to hit the bullseye center, but just like in darts, that's going to be a rare thing. I might get close, but most of the time I'll be somewhere in that area, and then sometimes at the edge and sometimes off the board altogether. I shouldn't be upset when I miss the mark, the center. I should expect that missing is not quite getting it fully is the norm. Instead, I should be delighted when I do hit the mark. A little bit of a change of perspective. The next principle is called the uphill climb. It speaks to the rising upward path of life, of striving, finishing the day higher with a greater vista of life than before, just by virtue of if only, the fact of accumulated reading and experience, but hopefully through improved living as well. I don't want to bury myself in a hobbit hole where I am. I want to continually to climb and rise in life. Rising is a thing about improving my vista, not my situation necessarily. Arena and utility, that's the next principle. Life is an arena where I use my principles to live a better life in seeking after the aim of my objectives. The aim that is embodied in my objectives, that's a better way to say it. Nothing is enough. just a humble reminder towards less. And then finally, the principle of fun. Someone's snoring. A reminder to enjoy today. Enjoy the memories of yesterday. And enjoy the forecast of tomorrow. Okay, that's my Good Life Creed. My 7 objectives and 34 principles. Now, let's plan for today. It's a Sunday, a day off. And Yumiko asked me last night before I went to bed, what are you going to do tomorrow, Kurt? What do you want to do? And I told her, I want to sit on my Adirondack chair in the garden all day reading. And then go for walks with her and the dogs in their due time. There's something about this area here that's just so beautiful. There's an ocean, a river of sea air that just flows across the clouds all day long. And we're now in late April, just that perfect sweet spot of temperatures. It's beautiful to sit outside. So I'll sit outside and I'll read my big book. That's my plan for today. Of course, I'll do all my normal things, reading poetry, reading the Bible. I'll edit a page from one of my books. I'll catch up on my email, answer all my YouTube comments, all the stuff that I do every day. And after take care of the dogs. But after all that's done, then I'll settle in for a nice long day of leisure. Sounds fun. Thanks for joining me. Be safe, but not too safe. And with that, my life is done, if not finished.